how do you create digital agility in a time of crisis? And we're going to, we have a great panel for this, which I'm now going to introduce. We have managed finally to source some white men for our panels, and I do apologize for the lack of white men diversity in the earlier sessions, but we have now, sorry, it's a bit cheeky, isn't it? So we have some brilliant panelists, I should say. Three fantastic people. Ben Neo, who's head of professional services in the charity sector at Mitel, so he's going to be talking a little bit about that. James Scotton, strategic acquisitions director at Olive, and Andrew Finlay, who is the head of service delivery at British Red Cross. And Olive and Mitel have partnered with British Red Cross in response to the pandemic, and they've implemented really a world-class cloud center environment within 7 days, which is insane. And I think they're going to be talking to us in detail about how that's even possible. And they're going to talk about digital agility and how sometimes when there is a crisis, you really don't have a choice. You just have to make it work, and you have to make it work quickly and sustainably and in a way that's safe for everybody. So I'm very much looking forward to that session. We're going to, as you are now familiar with our format, we're going to first have the panel, and then we'll open it up to questions for all of you. So here we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all well. My name is James Scotton from Olive. Firstly, I just want to start by thanking everybody for joining our session today, where we'll be talking about digital agility in the time of crisis. I'm joined by Ben Neo from Mitel and Andrew Finlay from the British Red Cross, so I'd also like to thank them both for their time today. We have a really exciting agenda ahead. To start, we have Ben Neo, who's head of charity at Mitel and has over 25 years experience in the industry. Ben will be talking with us today about why digital evolution within the charitable sector is necessary in order to be able to support the tremendous changes that we're now seeing. Following Ben, it'll be myself, James Scotton, and I'm a strategic acquisition director at Olive. My role involves working with charities to help drive digital transformation focused on delivering outcomes. So I'll be providing an insight to how charities can deliver an agile and digitally led customer experience, and also looking at ways you can leverage value provided through a specialist partner like Olive when looking to embark on that digital transformation journey. Following that, we have the pleasure of having Andrew Finlay with us today, who is the head of service delivery at the British Red Cross. And Andrew will be talking with us about digital agility and partnership in time of crisis. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Ben Neo. Ben, welcome.
Thanks, James. So my name's Ben Neo, and I look after the charity sector here at Mitel in the UK. For those of you who haven't heard of Mitel, we've got over 47 years of experience within the UK charity sector, providing communications and telephony services. So whilst that may just mean making phones ring, actually with the advent of technology, we now enable remote working through our collaboration tools and through contact centre solutions, better engagement with volunteers, members and beneficiaries. Throughout the 47 years we've been engaged in the charity sector, we have seen huge changes, but none more so than where we are today. And I thought this cartoon was quite an interesting take on it. We couldn't have foreseen how dramatically the last few months would impact us all, but it does bring to light the importance of digital agility. We also recognise that as a sector, charities may find themselves behind on digital transformation plans, not for a lack of appetite, but because many face stumbling blocks such as funding or digital resources. We're here to help to change that. So where do we find ourselves at the moment? Well, Forbes tells us that 70% of global businesses already have a digital transformation strategy underway. But when we look at the Charity Skills Report, it tells us that 52% of UK charities don't have a digital strategy. It also tells us that there are less than 35% of UK charities who are aware of how digital trends are affecting their charity and fundraising, which is hugely important because these digital trends really are fast and fleeting, and they're coming in. A great example of that being the huge growth of the app TikTok, which is engaging volunteers and beneficiaries and members through their digital platform using donation stickers, which is something that British Red Cross, NHS and Help Musicians are currently only the 3 charities which are taking advantage of that. That app in particular focuses on millennials, which is the largest sector of charitable donations. Over 35% of funding comes from this sector, which is equivalent to about £2.7 billion worth of donations every year. And 68% of them donate in the spur of the moment. So we need to be thinking about engagement across all different channels within the industry and adopting what is known as an omni-channel strategy. One of the challenges, though, in terms of digital evolution within the sector is the lack of digital skills that they really have. And again, the Charity Skills Report tells us that is the biggest sector problem after fundraising. How can we expect a sector to know how to digitally evolve when they haven't got the digital skills that many other sectors already have and are using in terms of their transformation plans? Great example of that, and this is a great quote from Paul Doherty, the CTO of Accenture, is the recent move to remote working. In fact, what he's saying is actually that's going to continue. So people won't be working from home. They'll be more like living in the office. So we've gone from 1.7 million people remote working in the UK to over 20 million people within the space of a matter of weeks. And that is expected to continue, with ultimately 80% of the workforce will continue to be deskless by the end of this year. So we need to be thinking about giving people the tools to be able to do their jobs more effectively, to still maintain that productivity and engagement with their colleagues and staff members, wherever they happen to be. We also need to think about making that easy for them. So Business Wire tells us that 74% of office workers have, on average, at any one time, more than 5 working applications open. That's introducing complexity. If digital skills in the sector are slightly weaker than others, we need to be thinking about making things as easy as possible. The second thing we need to do also is looking at externally. How do we engage better with key sectors and make ourselves more applicable to others? So, of course, we need to remain relevant, but also through personalisation of that digital experience is really, really important. This stat here from Blackbow talks about 62% of millennials would donate more. That's between 10 to 15% of what they already do if they felt this was aimed at them and it was delivered on their terms. So we need to think about which channels do we need to engage across and how do we engage on those as well. So when we're looking at digital evolution, it's all about the 5 C's for us. Firstly, cloud. Cloud is that new industry buzzword, but that's the ability to consume technology which is being hosted somewhere else, which means that it's quick to deploy, it's very, very scalable, and there's a lower cost to entry of being able to bring in some of this technology. Secondly, it's collaboration tools. We want to get away from people making decisions and downloading their own software and trying then to cobble it together, because that creates complexity, not just for the IT life, but also from an engagement throughout the organisation. We need to think about providing the right set of collaboration tools that do all these features rather than point solutions, because then it makes life a lot easier for everybody from an engagement perspective. We then think about contact center. That is the engagement across multiple channels, or as the industry calls it, omni-channel engagement. So people are not only dealing with you from voice, but over email, social media, web chat, lots of different channels. How can we best use that and take in those engagements so that they get to the right place and it's consistently delivered every single time in terms of service and the advice that's given back there. And then the last 2 are really, really important: culture and community. From a culture perspective, embrace digital, embrace the change as well, be seen to embracing as well. That means senior leaders using the technology, encouraging the use of technology around there, because that will embed itself in terms of the cultural fabric of the organisation, and it will mean that other people, the adoption rates will get higher and higher. And finally, community. Well, community is all around finding other people that can help you do this. There is a big community there which will enable you to digitally evolve. Digital change on its own, the thought of it can be quite daunting. But actually, if you think about the community around you, there's various examples of other people within the charity sector that are doing it already, small, medium and large, but also they can give you the highs and lows of that engagement as well. They can tell you who are the best people to engage with. They were talking about the best technology vendors. So how can you look to leverage all that experience and that knowledge that's out there to make sure that your project is a success? It's all about dealing with the right people. And with that, I'm going to hand over to James Scotton from Olive, who's just going to talk about how to provide an agile and digitally led customer experience. Over to you, James.
Thank you for that, Ben. The pace of change within the charity sector really is fascinating, and I think it's fair to say, now more than ever, charities are looking to leverage and embrace modern technologies in order to be able to amplify their mission impact. So before we speak with Andrew at the British Red Cross, I just want to provide a quick insight to how you can provide an agile and digitally led customer experience, but also how charities can leverage value from a specialist partner like Olive when looking to kind of embark and start on that digital customer journey. So just to give you an overview of Olive, we're a market-leading, fully managed service provider of cloud-based communication technologies, and we work with a wide range of different charities of all different shapes and sizes across the UK, one of which we'll be speaking with shortly, the British Red Cross. I want to provide a bit of a walkthrough of what we call our blueprint of success. This has been structured through our own experiences and our own successful outcomes within the charity sector. For us, the starting of that is the right engagement approach and the right engagement model. With an outcome focus, charities need to be able to identify obviously what is trying to be achieved in order to be able to understand what the end goal is. By leveraging the experience, expertise, vision from an experienced partner within the charity sector like Olive, you can ensure that the best approach is considered in order to deliver your outcome. Once the outcome has then been clearly mapped and defined, you can then start looking at layering technology over the top in order to be able to achieve those outcomes, as opposed to introducing technology for technology's sake. When we look at the approach from a deployment and a service side of things, we've outlined a few sort of key design considerations and principles that we've been successful and embraced within the charity sector with customers that we've worked with. One of the main core ones is leveraging the value of a cloud technology ecosystem. This will then bring together all technologies under a single service design and allow it to be able to be consumed really, really easily under simple user personas. At Olive, this is our cloud managed service platform. With this approach, licenses can then be scaled, which provides huge value actually within the charity sector in being able to scale in line with operational requirements, but also for that sort of unknown of tomorrow in needing to potentially respond to a particular event. One of the other sort of key design considerations that we find is, and I guess one that I'm sure that Andrew will be talking about soon, is the ability to rapidly deploy. In the nature of the work that charities do, there may be the need to be able to kind of turn on or turn off capabilities near instantly in order to be able to respond and support accordingly. So it's a crucial design advantage in terms of being able to be flexible. Once charities have then been able to access that technology ecosystem, the art of that is then ongoing transformation. So being able to sort of continually evolve through time. Access with new innovation, continuous improvement considerations can ensure charities are then able to sort of continue maximizing operational efficiencies and be able to deliver ongoing brilliant experiences when engaging with the public. There are a number of different technologies that can be considered to address specific outcomes, which, with having an experienced partner aligned to these, being able to translate different technologies is going to be really important to be able to achieve those end goals. Some key examples that we're currently seeing, and some that Ben spoke about earlier, is the need to be able to provide a modern engagement capability, but also a personalized experience when engaging with the public. So we have done this by aligning an omni-channel contact center service, which will allow for charities to be able to deliver voice, social, digital messenger platforms such as WhatsApp into a single view of the customer and the public, which then can be obviously also integrated with other business systems, achieving a personalized experience. Another one really, really key at the moment is the ability, not just to work remotely, but to be able to work from anywhere. Digital collaboration has become an absolute crucial part of charities in the way that they operate. To address this, we utilize cloud unified communications and collaboration tools that can also be integrated with other desktop applications such as Microsoft Teams, delivering a single and unified user experience and the ability to be able to operate from any device or any location. There are a number of different technology considerations that we can support within the charity sector, and I think delivering whatever outcome is sort of most fitting. But I think some of the approach and considerations, again, in terms of the engagement, is understanding what needs to be achieved and then working backwards there to then look to align technology. So the time has come to speak with Andrew at the British Red Cross, which is something I'm personally really, really excited about and something that Olive is really proud of. The British Red Cross have an extremely strong reputation for over 150 years in providing support through a crisis, and obviously the coronavirus pandemic is no different. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Andrew from the British Red Cross. Andrew, welcome.
Hi, James.
Firstly, Andrew, just wanted to say thank you for your time today. Like I said, I'm really excited to be doing this with you today. I just want to start. I think it might be worthwhile just for the audience here. If you could provide sort of a brief overview of the British Red Cross, if possible, but also it'd be good to understand sort of how you'd set up to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yep, sure. Thank you. So, firstly, may I say how proud and privileged I feel to have been part of the delivery of this vital service in such challenging times during the COVID-19 pandemic. After all, this is a very difficult time for everyone across the country, including myself and my loved ones. The British Red Cross has been helping millions of people in the UK and around the world get the support they need when crisis strikes for over 150 years. British Red Cross today has 4,000 employees and around 32,000 volunteers. In the UK's hour of need and in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and as part of many other aligned initiatives, the British Red Cross made the important decision to set up the National Support Line in order to deliver that much needed crisis support to the British public.
Thank you, Andrew. So I spoke earlier around sort of the engagement approaches is sort of key in trying to understand sort of what the outcome objectives are, what we're trying to achieve. So, are you able to give sort of an insight to kind of what the key considerations, the key challenges were that were considered in order to deliver that national support line in response to the pandemic?
Yeah. Firstly, the insanely bullish timeline to get the proposed national support line up and running without sacrificing in any way the quality of service. The challenge of setting up a service for a diverse group of volunteers with mixed technical ability, with those volunteers dispersed across the UK, covering that much needed crisis support remotely from home, with the contact centre service being user-friendly and intuitive, and importantly, the need to easily scale in line with the response demand, as was very much an unknown. And with the overall mantra, keep it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, the need obviously to get it deployed, very quickly, but with the consideration of the volunteers that are going to be supporting this national support line. So taking into consideration the ease of use, the intuitiveness of the platform are all sort of considerations that needed to be put in place in order to deliver this successfully within the very tight timescale, as you mentioned. So in terms of the engagement approach and the solution approach with Oliver Mitel to deliver this service, can you sort of give and I guess describe sort of the approach and how that was able to meet with your requirements?
Yep. So I'd like to split that question into two parts and add that the British Red Cross had done their research on the Oliver Mitel solution before those initial discussions. So firstly, the engagement. From those initial discussions and conversations with both Olive and Mitel outlining the high-level outcome. Firstly, I had a short conversation with Ben from Mitel, who directed me to Olive. And then in discussions with Olive dug deeper into those considerations and challenges, developing a clear vision of the predicted objective, thus aligning the technical solution to the requirements of the British Red Cross. This joint approach ensured both customer and supplier were aligned to the vision, and that smooth delivery of the project from the outset, giving that clear direction of travel and timeline, and importantly, laser focus on the predicted outcome, which in turn leads me nicely to my first impressions of Olive and Mitel. Passionate about the technology, positive can-do attitude with an emphasis on partnership and collaboration, which gave me, the British Red Cross, the confidence that they were the right choice of partner from the outset to deliver the desired goal. And secondly, the solution, a Mitel cloud-based service that allowed the solution to simply scale and flex in line with demand. Thus, the technology clearly aligned to our requirements. True digital solution, allowing our diverse group of volunteers to connect to the contact center solution from home on any device via Wi-Fi or 4G. The project team were able to rapidly deploy the platform and contact center service from inception to delivery in just 7 days. and in turn, setting in place foundations to future-proof the platform with the potential to introduce digital messenger platforms and video.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and as you said, rapid deployment in 7 days. It was a key requirement, and great outcome. Great to hear. So, from your side, then, Andrew, in terms of what you feel is important, and I guess what's helped this project delivery, how would you sort of say, why the importance of a trusted partner is so valuable, and also obviously why Mitel and Olive?
So, I firmly believe a trusted partnership are the keys to success and longevity. Building on those initial conversations from the outset with both Olive and Mitel, it was very clear we were in this together, and throughout the many challenges, let's make it happen. During the project engagement, Olive delivered over and above on promises, the ability to see the bigger picture without getting lost in the unnecessary detail, while recognising the absolute importance of the service. Their invaluable depth of understanding and demonstrable experience in the sector, similarly aligned cultural values around partnership and customer excellence, and importantly, that pragmatic approach and attitude towards a speedy deployment without the compromise on quality.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Partnership is absolutely key to the success of this. So, how would you describe the outcome? Now stepping back, sort of a month on, we had a week to build and deploy and sort of get that up and running. How would you describe the outcome from here?
In short, a trusted partnership, a truly noteworthy success for both Olive and Mitel and the British Red Cross under exceptionally difficult circumstances during the COVID-19 crisis, delivering a solution without sacrificing quality on time to that insanely bullish timeline. Something I'm very proud to have been part of. Truly remarkable.
So, in terms of obviously the audience here today, Andrew, obviously other charities are obviously looking to embark on that same journey, looking to leverage modern cloud technology to be able to communicate with the public better, or be able to work more agile. What sort of advice and learnings would you take from this project and pass on to other charities here today?
Firstly, focus on the end goal, align the technology to the goal, do your research, engage with an experienced and trusted supplier, and do not undervalue the power of a partnership. Use creative solutions to overcome challenges. What do I mean by that? Think outside the box, challenge each other often, build a solid and trusted team, and support each other through the process. And importantly, keep it simple.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Andrew. And like you said, we're in it together. We're both set up to, in terms of the partnership, to be able to achieve the end goal. So it's a great example of a successful project. And thank you very much for your time today.
You're very welcome, James. Thank you.
Well, thanks, James and Andrew. That really was a fantastic example of where technology, expertise, and a real togetherness and can-do attitude, delivering a core service, which I guess, a few years ago, the thought of doing something of that scale in such a short space of time just wouldn't have been possible. I guess to summarise that, we are in unprecedented times, but it's a fantastic opportunity for people to reevaluate their plans. And of course, with the changing nature of where we are, it's be bold and think digital first. But also, along that, some of the things that Andrew mentioned there, putting in a foundation for success. Think of the long term. Make sure what you're putting in today is absolutely going to be right for moving forward, and as new requirements develop. And finally, you're not alone. I mentioned in my piece about community, having the right people around you, the right technology vendors, the right peers in your sector to reference set, and the right culture within there. There's lots of people here to help, and we're all here to make sure that you all achieve the right business outcomes for your various digital projects.
So I just want to say, Ben, thank you for that summary, and again, thank you, Andrew, for your time today. I just want to add that Olive and Mitel are offering a free of charge virtual consultancy session to anyone, any organisation here today in attendance around improving digital agility within your organisation. If you'd like to take advantage of this offer, then feel free to reach out to either myself or Ben, and we'd be happy to talk with you further. Thank you for your time today.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for that. That was really inspiring and amazing to hear this incredible organization, the Red Cross, but also very, very large, and in some parts of it, quite old-fashioned organization, being able to pivot so quickly and making the most of partnerships and working with you guys. So really, really great. And I think those case studies are what will be most inspiring for our audience today, to see what other people have achieved as in such short times. I think Andrew unfortunately can't join us for the Q&A, but you guys have worked, so Ben and James, you guys have worked closely with him, and I'm sure you can probably answer that question, which is the first question that's come in, and it's been touched upon a little bit in the presentation, but I think it's such a big one for all of the people listening in today, is how do you manage the risk factor? You know, you're putting in this big technology platform very, very quickly with people, as we've heard, that are not necessarily trained in using it, and talking potentially to some very vulnerable people at the other end. What are the sort of, how have you been able to sort of get to a point where you were comfortable with the risk in such a short time frame?
Yeah, thank you, Claire. So I think for us and this project in particular, it all starts from the early stage, as I was saying, the early engagement, the planning, and sort of setting that sort of, you know, core strategy from start to finish is sort of the momentum and the sort of the direction of travel in terms of what we're trying to achieve. I think what makes then a successful project and a successful outcome is the buy-in and alignment culturally between both side. So for ourselves, it was very much on, you know, the view that if we were going to be able to, you know, fast track a deployment in a, you know, cloud contact center service within just 7 days, it was that they, you know, we needed to have that sort of commitment from both sides. So from in this particular circumstance, Olive and British Red Cross to be able to, you know, be able to sort of, I guess, consider the milestones that need to be achieved to be able to deliver that successful outcome. I think in consideration around risk, you know, from our side, it's sort of, you know, moving through a process. So, you know, working through kind of the fundamentals of things that need to be considered. I guess through, you know, the experience of a team and being able to, you know, done this many times before, we're able to kind of use, you know, knowledge and expertise around sort of considering the next step in line to be able to deliver something as quick as we do. But again, it's got to be you know, that sort of, you know, core understanding from the offset in terms of what needs to be achieved as an end goal, and then working through that as a momentum, as a collaboration between both organizations in terms of being able to deliver it successfully.
Were you able to do any level of consultation within the Red Cross, or?
Yeah, so with consideration that obviously we had to do all of this remotely, so we did a lot of sort of virtual sessions. So right at the very, very start, we, you know, the first sort of engagement was obviously understanding, you know, what was sort of there needed to be achieved, and at that point we had sort of you know, broad stakeholders across all the different elements that had a sort of an input from you know, from both parties together, and then through different sort of discovery engagement type sessions, you know, using tools such as video, using things like, you know, collaboration streams to be able to keep the momentum of, you know, all information together and keeping everyone sort of in, you know, up to speed on where things are at. But yeah, I think, you know, again, using, you know, virtual sessions to be able to engage and then taking that information that keeps the momentum of the project, really.
I think probably just to add to that, Claire and James, I think one of the things is, what we were quite clear about is we knew we had a very short time frame in which to deliver something, and we, you know, we can't go all the way to producing an all singing, all dancing solution. We need to understand what is the goal, and each stakeholder, you know, everyone wanted to get to that end goal, and everyone had a slightly different, maybe sort of like take on what might be good for them, and we had to come to a common understanding of, look, we're going to provide this service now, and then there's a roadmap and a plan and a timeline for when other elements of that service, which are going to be hugely valuable, but right now we've got 7 days. So let's be honest with ourselves as to what we can deliver within that, because this is really, really important. Let's not overpromise things, but let's make sure we've got a timeline. And Andrew was very clear about that with his managing his people within his team as to, we need to deliver the base. That's absolutely massively important. But then here's what's going to happen in 2 or 3 weeks' time, and as the take up becomes more, and we realise that we need to expand out some of the features and the services that are delivered. So it can be realistic and pragmatic with what you can deliver within the time frame that you've got as well.
So I think that's really, really key advice in terms of the communication of the overall project, what is coming when, and what's feasible. I think that's great. And actually, to some extent, this question about stakeholder engagements moves us on to the next question, which maybe Ben, you might want to answer, which is obviously remote working, remote engaging is looking to be the new normal, or at least a part of the new normal. What, from your perspective, what are some of the best ways to maintain engagement with a virtual team? And that includes full-time staff, but potentially also volunteers, and still maintain the culture of the organization, not become some sterile Zoom-focused group of people.
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's a challenge. I mean, clearly, the new normal of the remote working has shaken up the I guess the community kind of approach. I mean, I go into the office and I see people, and I see people that I haven't seen for a long while, and you just have a sporadic conversation about all sorts of things, and it evolves in personal topics because you haven't seen them for a while. But clearly you can't do right now with remote working. It's difficult because you almost feel like you've got to schedule something to talk to somebody to try and get that. And are you imposing because they might be busy that day? So I think there's a few elements around that. Clearly there's going to be a management theme around kind of, from a management perspective, what is the cadence, and from not just from clearly from a business perspective and outcome, the amount of time they do engage with people. But secondly, from a technology perspective as well, I'm going to talk about it from that, because we're on a Zoom call now. This is all different methods of remote working, and technology absolutely can help with that. So I think, if I look at it from our perspective here at Mitel, it's almost planned and unplanned kind of engagement, really. We use video conferencing more from a planned perspective. So I'm going to call you, Claire, at a particular time, or our team is going to have a meeting, or our project team is going to have a check-in, or maybe we're going to have a one-to-one. We kind of structure those. We do also use social side of things as well. So we'll have coffee break times. We have Friday drinks, but sort of Friday catch up at the end of it. And we do a monthly quiz as well. Again, that's trying, all of this will depend on the existing culture, because let's not try and fabricate something that isn't there right now. But we are trying to keep people engaged, both from a social perspective, because that is a big part of work, as well as from a charity and a corporate perspective as well. So there's the planned elements of that, which might need to be scheduled and structured. Then you've got some unplanned stuff as well, and that's where the sort of your Microsoft Teams and your Mitel messaging and things like that comes in, the instant messaging. So only just before this, I got sent an instant message just saying, good luck with today. People like that, short messages which just help remind people that you're being thought of by others, because all of this is a team game, but they're not intrusive. They're just little ones where you might have a WhatsApp or something like that. It just keeps you, it gives you a little bit of trust. And finally, if we're going to go really old school, actually have a conversation, pick up the phone as well. So my from the mental health perspective, I can't function without talking to people anyway. For me, I love the engagement of it all. I think I feel like I need it, just to sort of talk about stuff. So picking up the phone and making a phone call, maybe having to leave a voicemail, but eventually people will come back to you. But just using that maybe as a more of an unplanned kind of structure. It's just, I feel in the current times, it's almost better to over communicate and get people out, because you are going to feel a little bit more isolated, and therefore the culture of the team is going to change if you don't talk as much, because people make their own decisions about a lot of that. But I think there's a lot of great stuff. I was on the charity digital website. There's some great stuff about maintaining a culture with remote workers. There's also lots of free advice on YouTube as well. There's lots of things on there which people can have a look at. But it's a mixture between technology enabling the ability to talk to people, and also, again, I think people just coming out of themselves a little bit and not feeling afraid to reach out to people as well over the right medium. The kind of things that we've seen have been really successful.
I love this, and I love the concept of which we sort of dovetails very nicely to other things we've heard this morning of using a mixture of technologies, not just one. And in fact, we've had some of the participants saying sometimes a phone call is just what you want. You don't want to be looking at a camera or a screen. You just want to be talking to people. And I agree that the WhatsApp messages are a lovely little thing that is non-intrusive and much more informal. So that's really lovely. We are getting a bunch of questions, quite a few actually, about specifically about small charities, because obviously we've just talked about a very large charity, and that sounds like an amazing project, but obviously, but something of that scale requires resources. And we have Kate Sword is asking, can this work for a small charity with a limited budget? We've also got, digital transformation sounds impressive, but what about budget constraints? And we've heard, there was another one that I've lost, but it was all about, this is all great if you have the money and the staff and the people, but some of us are very small. We still want to be more digital. We still want to invest in solutions, but we have very different levels of resources. What can we do?
I think from how we worked with a vast range of different charities of all different shapes and sizes, we've needed to be able to align technology that obviously delivers the outcome that's trying to be achieved, but with consideration around budgetary constraints, size, the volume of people that may be interacting with the public, and obviously all charities are different, they interact in different ways, and all obviously different shapes and sizes. So I think how we've generally supported charities in this way is the sort of, again, keep the same fundamentals of how we engage to then look to layer on technology over the top. So that's the same engagement methods, looking at the way that they operate, how that may have changed now over the last, few months in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, looking at kind of how they're now looking to operate, looking at how they want to, their sort of engagement strategy moving forward. But there's, I guess the beauty of cloud and leveraging a sort of a technology ecosystem that we operate is the ability to then look to align technology that best fits. So again, there's a solution for everybody. I say we work with charities that, down to sort of 10 people right the way up to, the charities of the size of the British Red Cross. So I wouldn't, we're talking about kind of transformation and consuming new innovative technologies, modern capabilities. But, I wouldn't sort of, my advice would be to say, not let that sort of put you off or scare you in terms of change, because like I say, there is a solution to be aligned that can deliver an outcome. It just depends on obviously, what that is trying to be achieved, I guess.
Ben, anything?
Yeah, Claire, I think there's small and large. There's going to be a solution and a fit around whatever the requirement is, and we're extremely conscious about the commercial side of things, particularly for smaller charities. And there will be options for that. So I think it's starting off with, what are you trying to achieve? And then we'll work back to make it fit, not just from a technical perspective, but from a commercial perspective as well. And that's the best way of doing it. And again, it can be daunting. I know somebody mentioned there that using cloud services might be trickier. It's probably we're seeing people want to use cloud services because it's a lower cost of entry rather than having to buy a phone system or something like that. So I think let's have a conversation. All of these, it's just getting into the detail, I guess, and then we can advise in the best way. But there will be something to suit all shapes and sizes of organisations and budgets.
I think just to add to that is the view that obviously cloud does allow you to consume the capabilities on an operational consumption basis. So it's very much, it doesn't need to be sort of that sort of thought or sort of worry around that sort of big investment on the front end. Like all services that we consume now in our personal lives is that it's consumed on a subscription-based model. So what it does allow now and for charities to be able to consider is the ability to be able to turn on capabilities, proportionate to their size, and then obviously they can be sort of broadened out and consumed more as they develop or they transform.
Yeah, so be clear about your objectives and spend the time framing those very carefully, and also scary sounding things like cloud. I don't know if they're scary sounding, but they're not that scary in fact. And they will eventually, they're fluffy, yes, and they will eventually potentially give you the flexibility that you need to be more efficient. So that it's that time investment at the beginning. Fantastic.
Agreed.
We've got this. I'm going to go to Abby's question next, because it's interesting and I think slightly linked to what we were discussing in terms of what technology to use. So she's asking, when it comes to building a contact center solution, how can you take a user-centered approach to find out what contact methods the people who contact you want to use? And this goes back to some people are more comfortable with the phone. Some people, there's also a question here about SMS use, and some people are more comfortable texting. WhatsApp might be a solution. So how do you, when you have, I guess, a bit more time than 7 days, how do you go about trying to figure out the best mix?
I think for us, when we work with organizations and charities to be able to sort of understand what that customer engagement strategy needs to look like, and then looking again at the technology, I guess it's all going to be relevant to how they operate, how they currently communicate. And I think with a platform that allows them to be able to introduce, a whole plethora of different interaction methods, not just voice, but open up a single platform and single engagement solution with the public of voice, email, SMS, different social platforms, different digital chat solutions. I think a good starting point is to sort of look at ourselves as consumers, right? So I guess the expectation from ourselves now is we want to be able to communicate on our platform of choice. We want to be able to communicate on our terms, and things are more evolving now, where the consideration is to say, well, actually, if I'm speaking with a charity, it may be that I want to be able to pick up a mobile and, like I do communicate with my own friends and families, be able to communicate via WhatsApp. There may be sort of people in terms of how they interact is still traditional and maybe voice orientated. So I think that the journey that we go on with working with charities is sort of, again, understanding kind of the demographic of the charity and maybe who they generally communicate and target with, but kind of I guess accept and consider the fact that the public now are looking to broaden out just standard communication methods and look at different means to communicate as they do in their own personal lives.
I always remember on X Factor where you have like the list of all the 7 different methods you can use.
That's it.
To text. And anything to add to that, Ben? Or
I think one of the I guess the concerns that you might have with that is trying to be all things to everybody.
Yeah.
So it is looking at how do you want to communicate, or how do you want to enable people to communicate with you? But just bearing in mind that some of those channels that you might want people to communicate off you, and particularly maybe around the more social media type channels, are 24/7. And there's an expectation that's associated with those in terms of engagement or response or awareness around there. So I know everyone, in certain, I mentioned before in my bit about TikTok, and that is just the explosion of that within a particular sector of the market. But that is always on, right? So in terms of doing that, it's better probably not to send stuff from that into the charity itself, because you're unlikely, most times when people use that is between 8 and 10 o'clock at night, right? So are you likely to be open? So it's working out is, why are people calling you? What kind of timeframes are they calling you in? What kind of services are they generally calling about? And making sure that the routes in which that you offer to engage with you aren't going to stress you out even more than they would do, if through normal methods. So if you feel that absolutely every engagement has to land with somebody who is superbly proficient in the knowledge of what it is and explaining of the service and all the rest of it, well, absolutely, those channels that you've got to think about may need to be channeled within traditional working hours, unless it's a national helpline, you're going 24/7, whatever. But there are things to think about around that. So, that's I would say that work out again, how do you want to be open, but you want to make sure that you're not doing something which is going to really fail at the first hurdle. Let's make it easy for them to contact you, but let's make it easy for you to ensure that you meet the level of service which you'll be expected to meet. So, be very careful. All these things need to have some thought before you jump into them. So definitely people like Andrew will give you some great advice as to maybe what not to do and maybe what ones to try just to get going. We've seen web chat as a way of engagement, because actually you've still got somebody there. You can handle multiple ones of those as they come in. It's a starter to sort of broaden out that engagement, as opposed to social media, where all of a sudden someone sticks something in at 10 o'clock and then they still haven't had an answer by 8 o'clock the next morning, and you're going to get a torrent of negative feedback around that. So let's think about what we do. Look at the service from a consumer perspective or a beneficiary perspective first, and then look at what you can genuinely do within the realm of your capability and budget as well for the now.
I think that's really great advice. I'm obviously going to ask you to share your TikTok channels individually immediately, because we all need to do that.
Terrible, I'm sorry.
Yeah, dancing's entertaining.
But thinking about the impact that you were trying to achieve and making sure that you manage your resources are great. Somebody here, Joe Talbot, also says it's important that staff managing those channels have safeguarding training, and that's all about managing the risk. Absolutely. So that's also a very important thing to keep in mind. Listen, we're sort of running out of time. Are there any final words that you'd like to impart to our audience before we close up? This has been fantastic, and I think very, very helpful. Any closing remarks?
I think for me, it's a good starting point when looking to kind of embark on that digital transformation journey. Is you're not alone. It's sort of embrace sort of advice and guidance from other charities that maybe have sort of already started on their journey. Again, I think not to overcomplicate things around sort of what technology may be appropriate, and sort of just reiterating around what is the end goal, what is in sort of not the whether that's broken down in stages, and as Ben said, in terms of being able to support from an operational perspective introducing new technology. So whether that's sort of introduction of voice and then looking to sort of open up other channels later down the line, but I think it's sort of look to consider what that end goal is, and then apply technology accordingly, as opposed to, I guess, introducing technology for technology's sake. Is probably a good one.
Yeah, there's a world of possibility out there. Okay, agreed. It's just working out what's right for your end customer and what's right for the charity. Because small, medium, and large, everybody's got their own different challenges around process and around the services that they need. The real sheer diversity of people that have got to engage. We need to think about that. So, aligning technology is only possible, or should only be done, really, once the process of that engagement is understood. And then, like Andrew was talking about earlier, then doing something within 7 days, when it's clearly defined, you've got a fantastic chance of success. Yeah. Without that, it's a little bit of a strategy of hope, because you hope the technology is going to do something to you, and absolutely it will. But let's try and use it in where it's useful for. But it's been. Thank you for all the questions as well. They've been fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, both for the presentation, which I thought was brilliant and really inspiring, and thank you for joining us for these questions. I think that's been really, really fantastic. So big thank you for all of us. Thank you to questions there have been, and comments. They've been really helpful as well.